Today is Monday, September 30th. What to know about the aftermath from Hurricane Helene, from the widespread destruction across the southeast to the ongoing rescue missions. Also, Israel has killed the leader of Hezbollah and has continued attacks despite calls for a pause in fighting. How President Biden is now responding. Plus, a look at the potential impact of a major strike set to start tomorrow. Why you might not be able to play popular songs on YouTube right now, and which baseball team is being called the worst in MLB history. And those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, we start today with the widespread destruction and devastation left behind after Hurricane Helene, and the search and rescue efforts still underway. At last check, more than 100 people across 6 states have died from this storm. And unfortunately, the death toll is expected to rise as emergency workers reach areas isolated by collapsed roads, failing infrastructure, and widespread flooding. There have also been hundreds of rescues. The hurricane first hit Florida's Gulf Coast as the strongest ever to hit the Big Bend region there, where now some people have lost nearly everything they own. Then the storm tore through the southeast. In Georgia, the governor said some areas looked like a bomb went off. And the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Virginia were hit with torrential rains, sending creeks and rivers over the banks and straining dams. Helene especially wreaked havoc on western North Carolina, where they're dealing with the worst flooding in a century in that state. Authorities are even struggling to get basic necessities like water and other supplies to some flooded areas, isolated because of impassable roads, power outages, and cell phone service that's been cut off. Supplies were even being airlifted to at least one North Carolina county that includes the mountain city of Asheville. North Carolina's governor called it an unprecedented tragedy that requires an unprecedented response. As of early this morning, more than 2 million people across several states from Florida up to Ohio were without power. If you'd like to help victims of this storm, you can donate to nonprofit organizations like the American Red Cross, United Way, World Central Kitchen, Convoy of Hope, or many others. We put some links with suggestions in today's episode notes on our website. Despite calls for a pause in fighting, Israel has only ramped up its attacks against Hezbollah, reportedly killing at least 7 high-ranking Hezbollah commanders and officials in just over a week. Most notably, the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. The New York Times reports Nasrallah specifically was a beacon for anti-Israel forces across the Middle East, and his death is a major blow for Hezbollah. Though President Biden is calling the death of Hezbollah's leader a, quote, measure of justice for his many victims, explaining that Hezbollah, a U.S.-designated terrorist group that is backed by Iran, was responsible for killing hundreds of Americans over 4 decades. Biden continues to support Israel's right to defend itself, while also calling for a temporary ceasefire. But over the weekend, Israel's military has attacked not only Lebanon and Gaza, but it also sent a long-distance airstrike into Yemen after the Iran-backed Houthi rebel group launched 2 ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv. Hezbollah says it, too, will continue to fight and is still firing rockets into northern Israel. This escalation of violence between Israel and Iran-backed groups across the Middle East may only get more intense. Some reports say Israel is preparing for a ground invasion into southern Lebanon. President Biden says he's planning to speak with Israel's prime minister because he says an all-out war in the Middle East must be avoided. To be continued. Well, back in the U.S., the presidential candidates have been spending more time in swing states courting voters with just 36 days until Election Day. Vice President Kamala Harris went to the southern border on Friday, visiting a port of entry being modernized in Arizona and seemingly trying to show moderate voters a tough-on-migration stance. Harris promised harsher asylum restrictions, more serious charges against repeat violators, and more. She also accused former President Donald Trump of putting politics before border security when he helped to block a bipartisan border security bill earlier this year. Former President Donald Trump responded at a rally in Wisconsin, saying Harris should have been doing more at the border over the last 4 years. He's called her border visit a political stunt and said she's responsible for what he called an invasion. Also during that rally, Trump claimed Harris is, quote, mentally impaired, adding that, quote, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Trump repeated those false claims about Harris being impaired or disabled at a rally in Pennsylvania yesterday, despite some backlash over it. Even some of his Republican allies have said he should stick to the issues instead. So far, Harris hasn't responded to those comments, but she did say Americans have a right to hear them discuss the issues, calling on Trump again to take part in another debate with her. Trump has said he won't. Instead, all eyes are about to be on their running mates. Their VP picks are set to debate tomorrow, so stay tuned. All right, coming up, remembering a Hollywood legend, why you can't play certain songs on YouTube right now, a historically bad baseball season, and more. But first, a quick break for our sponsor. It's officially fall now, and the weather has already gotten a bit cooler where I live. But saying goodbye to the summer feels easier when I can slip into a cozy sweater from Quince. Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from just $50, by the way. I also feel extra sophisticated and stylish with my washable silk tank, yes, washable silk, and organic cotton blazer from Quince. I love having these high-quality pieces without having to feel guilty for buying them, because all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Seriously, go look at their website. It's amazing. You'll see beautiful leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim, and so much more. So how are they able to do all that at such a good price? By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings onto us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. So get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/newsworthy for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/newsworthy to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. She's being remembered as one of the greatest actresses of the past century. Maggie Smith passed away on Friday. Her career spanned 6 decades, and she became one of few to achieve the Triple Crown of acting, winning Academy, Emmy, and Tony Awards. Smith won her first Oscar in 1969, but she found her highest level of fame late in her career, known for her roles in the Harry Potter movies, as well as a memorable performance in the hit TV show Downton Abbey. She was 89. Maggie Smith wasn't the only legend the entertainment world lost this weekend. Country singer, songwriter, and actor Kris Kristofferson died on Sunday. His most famous song might be Me and Bobby McGee, made popular by Janis Joplin. He also wrote country standards like Sunday Mornin' Comin' Down. But Kristofferson acted, too. He became a cultural icon when he starred opposite Barbra Streisand in the 1976 version of A Star is Born. His talents didn't stop there. Over the course of his life, Kristofferson was a Rhodes Scholar, fiction writer, and Army helicopter pilot. He was 88. As of right now, you might not be able to listen to some of the most popular songs of all time on YouTube. And that's because of a dispute between the video streaming platform and an organization that controls performing rights for major artists. Basically, a group called CSAC owns the copyrights to these songs. Now that an agreement between CSAC and YouTube has expired, posting the songs could get YouTube in trouble for copyright infringement. Songs by Bob Dylan, Adele, Nirvana, Britney Spears, Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, and more disappeared from the platform over the weekend. YouTube said it couldn't reach an agreement to renew, and CSAC hasn't commented, so at this point, no word when the songs might return to the platform. Stay tuned. The new DreamWorks animation movie, The Wild Robot, won the box office over the weekend, taking home $35 million in U.S. and Canada, and that put the family-friendly movie ahead of Beetlejuice, which had topped the box office for 3 straight weekends. Critics have loved The Wild Robot. It has a 98% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and industry experts say good reviews often lead to more staying power at the theaters. Also opening this weekend, but with a much different result, was Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. It was the first release in 13 years for the director of Godfather, and he had largely self-funded the film. It wasn't cheap either. It cost $120 million to make, but it flopped on its debut weekend, bringing in just $4 million in theaters. It's also gotten largely bad reviews, though some critics have said it may become a cult classic. Major League Baseball officially has a new worst team of all time. The Chicago White Sox made unwanted history when they lost their 121st game over the weekend, which is more than any team has ever lost in a single season, going back more than 100 years. The White Sox's 121 losses edged out the 1962 New York Mets, who lost 120 games. No one expected the White Sox to be good when the season started, but few people predicted the historically bad season they put together. Even the team's own social media account started making light of the number of losses, posting things like, quote, "Final, the number of runs we scored was not greater than the number of runs they scored," or a list of things the team would rather do than read the comments. Well, that's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, this episode is brought to you by Wildgrain. Fall is here, the temperatures are dropping, and it's time to start baking delicious homemade favorites. Wildgrain is here to help you warm up your house with sourdough breads, fresh pastas, and artisanal pastries, including a wide array of seasonal offerings. Rumor has it they'll have a small number of apple cider donuts, so get them before they sell out. They make it so easy by doing all of the hard work for you. If you're not familiar with Wildgrain, it's the first bake-from-frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas. Wildgrain's boxes are fully customizable to your tastes and dietary restrictions. In addition to their classic variety box, they recently launched a new gluten-free box and a plant-based box that is 100% vegan. Best of all, they take the hassle out of baking, since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup. I cannot believe how easy it is with Wildgrain to feel like I'm eating at an exclusive Italian restaurant right at home, and my whole family agrees. And for a limited time, Wildgrain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/newsworthy to start your subscription. You heard me, free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/newsworthy. That's wildgrain.com/newsworthy, or you can use the promo code newsworthy at checkout. Okay, now back to Money Monday. A potential dock worker strike could start as soon as tomorrow if there's no deal by tonight. And if that happens, it could cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars every day. For starters, shipping delays could cause problems with the global supply chain. The affected ports handle almost 70% of containerized imports, so a strike would put a stop to new consumer goods coming into the country and could delay even holiday shipments. Even if the strike only lasts a week, shipping could take 4 to 6 weeks to catch up with the delays. That means even a short strike could make holiday shopping season more difficult and more expensive, since retailers may not have all of the items they were planning to stock for the season. Automakers and pharmaceutical companies could also face short-term price hikes. They often use production models that rely on a steady stream of supplies, which would be disrupted by a strike and could cause a short-term jump in prices for those industries. But a prolonged work stoppage could affect even more industries. Virtually every economic sector is tied to the supply chain or global trade in some way. So a strike longer than 2 weeks could have wide-reaching effects on prices across the country. With fewer goods coming into the country, there will be less supply, which tends to cause price increases. So the big question is, how long could this last? Dock workers haven't gone on strike at this scale since 1977, so there's not a lot of recent history to help with estimations. But that strike lasted 44 days, which would take us right before Thanksgiving this year. So if there's anything on your holiday shopping list you absolutely have to have this year, you may want to consider ordering it early and having a backup plan. We'll update you about the possible strike tomorrow. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. You can further support our work here by becoming a Newsworthy Insider. You can listen ad-free on any podcast app, so sign up for your free trial at thenewsworthy.com/insider. Thank you so much in advance. And by the way, Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to episodes of The Newsworthy ad-free in the Wondery app. All right, we'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.